the first thing we'll tackle will be a little bit of a chat on data interoperability and data sovereignty. So I would invite Antonio now to join, and Gregory if he's available. Hi, Antonio.
Hello.
Glad to see you.
Nice to see you too.
So I will ask you a couple of questions and you give inspiring answers as you always do, Antonio. So yeah,
not my day, but just go ahead, please.
Yeah. So there are many problems to solve to bring the technologies of the Web3 age to become mainstream. But today we put forward topics of data sovereignty and interoperability. So how do you perceive the problem of data sovereignty? The data today is being siloed. How deep is this problem? Is it worth solving?
Well, first of all, I think that the problem with data today is the incentives that we have to gather that. We have multiple private companies that we all know trying to know the size of our underwear in order to sell more products, and this is a very twisted way to get the data, to gather that information from us. And a way to twist it, it's possible, but it requires to get away from this siloed ecosystem that only benefits the owner and the creator of the silo. And a good example for this, I would say, it's the promise that a data marketplace could benefit all the participants in the marketplace, not only the users or for instance, the advertisers, if we want to keep on with the advertising thing, the advertisers, but also the marketplace. And for instance, if I own my data of the purchases that I make, and that's a no-brainer. I do own it. It's period. It's my data. If I own it and I actually put it into a marketplace with permission data, somebody else can run analytics on top of that and create some elasticity curves to match demand or to match switching. And if I buy, for instance, a pair of Nike Air shoes, Air Max, maybe they can find out that after 6 months after, I'm eager to switch to Adidas. And if that's the case, in a public set of data, they can actually give the Adidas for free, because I'm going to be a recurrent customer. And that's a win-win for everybody. That's a win-win for Adidas that actually sold me a couple of pairs of sneakers. It's a win-win for me that I actually got some sneakers at a discounted price or a very low price. And that's a win-win for the marketplace. Can tag on top of that. And that changed completely the picture that we're in. It's not about pushing ads to you, which is actually the Web 2.0 main incentives, but it's a different way. But the only way to do that is to create that bridges between different data. And the only way to do it is to have the users, the real data generators, become the sovereigns of their information.
Thank you, Antonio. So that's very deep. And so actually, the next question is about a topic that you sort of tackled at your the last time we had an event. So you talked a lot about interoperability, and it is a large and complex problem. Many standards exist. In theory, we should already have interoperability. So do you think it's more of a technical problem or more of a social problem to tackle? What is the best way to approach it?
I would say it's a social problem, but it's complicated. It's complicated because people are using a lot of tools, but it's a kind of we need to start thinking how to share, how our data is going to be created, and therefore how are we going to be able to share it. It's not only we are used to just don't care about that, and it's a pity because there's a lot of value in the data that we actually manage. So this we create. So I would say it's a kind of both. Not only it's around creating standards. Well, there's a big old joke from XKCD that I'm not gonna go for that. But creating a standard is a very complicated thing. But what could happen is that if we are actually understand the value of owning our own data, and that needs to happen with the different tools, and that I hope that we can give a little hint of them today.
So actually, we think that data sovereignty and interoperability are connected, with sovereignty being somewhat dependent on interoperability, of course. But how do you think that fair data principles come into play here? So they're not defining any standard. Are they? Yeah, they're maybe helpful in this respect anyway?
Well, that's a complex question. I would say because it goes back to ethics and to morals and what do you think of the data that should be shared or should not. But this is why since it's difficult to create a standard, the way to do it is to create going higher up in the values of the chain. So this is where we go from the actual code, the standard, to a higher level, which is the values behind what is going to be shared, what should be shared, and what should not.
Okay, Antonio. So let's move on to usage of Swarm. So let's say that you were talking to a startup, maybe developing dApps. So how would you explain Swarm? Why should they use it?
Well, it's really fun. It's really fun for any startup to use it because you know, as a startup guy, I kind of myself created a couple of ventures, and they want, well, different outcomes, I would say. But the idea is that you always face this problem of how to deal with the data, you know, because you have logins, you have a lot of people going into your thing, and you have to store that, and you have to comply with regulations, and this is always a pain. It's a big pain. And especially where it depends on where you live, but there are different places in the world, and of course it's not the same in every place, but still it's a pain everywhere. You have to store that, you have to take it into account that thing very, very well. And the good thing about giving back the data to the people is that to the actual creators is that you don't have to keep that record, because you don't know who's going in, you don't know who's the user. You just provide the tool, you just provide the service. But the user comes, he does his thing, you get paid for that, and then he goes away. And this is a very, very powerful thing, and I think that it can solve a lot of the problems, and it actually breaks the incentives problems that we were talking about 5 minutes ago, about how the Web 2.0 is twisted, and it can evolve into this new, more civilized web.
So maybe the same thing. How would you explain what to do with Swarm to a CTO of a large company?
What do you mean?
Well, now we don't have startups, but we have an established company. So
several things. I would say that the way to do it is that the way to pitch it to a corporation would be to actually give back the promise that was there, that giving back the data to the users. This is something that the corporations have done a lot. They brag about, yeah, we are respecting the privacy. Okay, there you go. Here's your shot. Do it. Let's see.
Okay, and I think that this is an opportunity for actually to bring together, so unsilo the data and bring data closer to the whole ecosystem of players, like large and small companies. I think this is one major advantage of this kind of storage.
For sure.
So Antonio, thank you. I will ask you to stay online for comments, so helping me sort of push this track through, I mean this session.